Could it be that your entire life, your relationships, your health, your success is being shaped by just two words? Not by effort, not by hard work, but by something so simple, so silent, that you've overlooked it your whole life? Neville Goddard once said, "God and man are one. Man is all imagination, and God is man's imagination." That statement is not poetic, it's practical. It's the reason behind the results you've been getting. It's the cause behind the patterns that keep repeating. And it all starts with these two words, I am. This isn't about thinking positively. This is not about wishful phrases or reciting lines in front of the mirror. I am is not a slogan. It is a statement of being. It is the name of God, spoken through you. In one of his last talks, God and I are one, Neville said something that changes everything. Every time you say I am, you are creating, not describing, not hoping, creating. And the feeling with which you say it, whether doubt, joy, frustration, or certainty, determines the form that creation takes. So in this video, we're going to look at what I am really means, why it's always working, whether you know it or not, and how to use it with awareness instead of habit. You'll learn two overlooked ideas Neville taught that shift everything. First, the blank canvas principle, how saying I am with nothing added brings you back to your original power. And second, spiritual eavesdropping, how to catch the quiet I am statements you say without realizing, the ones shaping your days behind the scenes. This isn't about changing your personality. It's about recognizing the root of what you've been assuming, every hour, every day, and learning how to speak from that deeper place of truth. Let's begin with the name you've been using your whole life, often without knowing what it really does. The law of divine identity. When you say the words I am, you are doing more than making a statement. You are activating the creative center of your being. This is not an idea, it's a law, and it has always been operating, whether you were conscious of it or not. Neville taught that I am is the name of God. It appears in the book of Exodus when Moses asks for the name of the Almighty, and the voice replies, I am that I am. Not I will be, not I was, but I am, eternal presence, unchanging being. And here's the part most people miss, that same I am is the awareness within you. The moment you say I am, you are placing a demand on the universe. You are not hoping for something to happen. You are calling it into being. Think of it like this. If your life is a stage, I am is the casting director. Every time you say I am tired, you hire tiredness. Every time you say I am not enough, you cast a version of yourself to play out that role. These words, simple as they seem, carry creative authority. Neville put it clearly. Stop calling upon God as though he were outside of you. You are the operant power. That means you don't wait. You don't plead. You assume. You identify. But here's the catch. It's not just what you say. It's what you feel behind the words. I am, followed by fear, still creates. I am, followed by lack, still brings results. The law doesn't turn off. It doesn't pause for doubt. It responds to the inner feeling. Pause for a moment and consider this. What identity have you been repeating without knowing? What descriptions of yourself have you been speaking, not as opinions, but as facts? I am just this way. I am always unlucky. I am not the kind of person who gets that. These are not casual phrases. They are instructions, directives, declarations, and most of them are not consciously chosen. They've been absorbed, repeated, and reinforced through years of unconscious acceptance. The power of I am is not in the volume of your voice, it's in the level of your belief. Neville said, change your conception of yourself, and you will automatically change the world in which you live. That change doesn't come from struggle. It begins with a new sentence, and before that sentence, a new awareness. What is one I am? You have been saying that you now see has shaped your reality, and what would happen if you replaced it? Not with what you hope to become, but with what you choose to be now. I am is not a wish. It is a decision, spoken from the center of who you are. Now you are wondering, what is the blank canvas principle? Before you say, I am successful, or I am loved, or I am free, you must first come back to the quiet fact that you simply are. Not the name you've been given, not the roles you play, not the goals you're chasing. Just being, just I am. Neville taught that this state, pure, silent awareness, is not empty. It is full of power. In his lesser-known writings, he referred to this as the foundation upon which all things are built, a blank canvas. the moment before the brush touches, the stillness before the sound. Most people skip this. They rush to attach declarations. I am abundant. I am healed. But they build those words on anxiety, on need, on mental noise, and then they wonder why the words feel empty. But when you sit in the stillness of I am, without adding anything, something remarkable happens. The mind quiets. The emotional turbulence settles. You remember that before the labels there was presence, there was awareness, there was life. Neville once said, "To name God is to limit God. Just say I am, and feel the stillness." That's the purest truth. It sounds simple, and it is, but it's not easy because the mind wants to define. It wants to label, control, fix. Stillness feels foreign because it threatens the ego's need to constantly become. But this practice of I am, without content, without adjectives, is the reset button. It clears the assumptions. It restores your awareness to its original power. There are a few ways to approach this. 1. Sit quietly and repeat, I am, nothing more. Notice what comes up, but don't follow it. Let the phrase echo in your awareness like a bell. 2. Breathe in on I and breathe out on am. Let it become rhythmic, like waves arriving on the shore. 3. Throughout the day, return to this phrase in silence. When stress rises, say internally, I am, and let that be enough. This is not about stopping thought. It's about recognizing the space behind thought, the canvas that allows all things to appear but is not changed by them. Neville didn't teach this as a technique to feel better. He taught it as truth. You are not the story. You are the awareness in which the story unfolds. When you say I am, from this stillness, from this clean space, whatever you add afterward has weight. It lands. It creates. What happens when you sit with I am and add nothing? What emotion rises? What do you notice about your breath, your body, your thoughts? This is not an escape from life. It's a return to the center of it. It is the moment before creation, the place where choice is real and identity is fluid. Don't rush to fill the silence. Feel it. Recognize it. You were here before every label. You are here now, stillness and all. I am. And for now, that is enough. Before we continue, take a moment to notice something. Every assumption you've ever accepted as real started with a thought, a sentence, a quiet agreement with limitation, and yet, those limits were never yours to begin with. If you've ever wondered what it would feel like to rewrite that inner script with words that actually reflect your true power, check the link in the pinned comment. Not now, just keep it in mind. You'll know when the time feels right. Let's move on to the spiritual eavesdropping. The words you speak to yourself in silence are the most powerful words you will ever hear, not the ones you choose when you're trying to be spiritual, not the polished affirmations spoken during a morning ritual, but the casual phrases, the murmurs under your breath, the comments that slip out when you're irritated, tired, or disappointed. These are the ones with the most creative power. Neville Goddard taught that your inner speech reveals your true assumptions, not what you want to believe, not what you say to impress others, but what you actually believe. What you are. He said, you can hear what you are by listening to what you say when you're not thinking. Most people go through their day speaking I am statements without realizing they're using the name of God. I am so unlucky. I am terrible at this. I am not like them. These phrases are not just expressions of frustration. They are acts of creation. You are not just describing a state, you are assigning yourself to it. And the law does not discriminate. It doesn't ask whether you mean it. It doesn't pause to consider whether it's fair or deserved. It simply receives the command, I am, and it goes to work. This is what we call spiritual eavesdropping, the practice of listening to the private, automatic dialogue that shapes your reality without your consent. This hidden self-talk is not random. It's the result of long-held assumptions, stories inherited from childhood, cultural conditioning, and moments of emotional repetition. Over time, they become part of your identity. They feel true not because they are, but because they've been repeated so often. Let's look at some examples. You hear yourself say, I am not creative. You probably didn't consciously choose that idea. Maybe a teacher once told you that. Maybe you compared yourself to someone else. Over time, it became a silent mantra. It sounds harmless, but your subconscious doesn't treat it that way. It hears, I am that, and begins filtering your reality accordingly. You overlook opportunities. You dismiss your ideas. You don't even try. Why would you? You already are not creative. Or you say, I am always overwhelmed. And suddenly, no matter how much time you're given, the feeling of pressure returns. It's not about the external workload anymore. It's the identity you've taken on, subtly, silently, consistently. This is the key. Your reality flows not from effort, but from identity. Neville said, "Change your conception of yourself and you will automatically change the world in which you live. But you can't change your conception until you've heard it clearly. And that's where this practice begins. You don't need to analyze every thought. You only need to become aware of the ones that begin with I am. Not in a dramatic moment, but in the background of your day, when you check your bank account, when someone cancels on you, when your idea gets ignored, when you're alone with your thoughts. What do you say about yourself then? This is not about self-criticism. It's about clarity. You can't revise what you refuse to observe. You can't assume a new identity while running an old internal script. Here are 3 simple practices to help bring this hidden speech into the light. 1. Keep an I am journal. For 3 days, carry a small notebook or use your phone. Every time you catch yourself using the phrase I am, write it down, especially the ones that don't feel intentional. I am always late. I am bad at remembering names. I am too sensitive. Don't edit. Don't correct. Just record. This is not about fixing anything yet. It's about hearing yourself clearly, maybe for the first time. 2. Voice memo audit. At the end of each day, record a 1-minute reflection. Talk freely. Then, listen back. What language do you use? What I am phrases come up naturally? This exercise often reveals subtle patterns that the conscious mind misses. You may be shocked at how many assumptions about your worth, your abilities, or your limitations are embedded in your everyday speech. 3. Gentle substitution. Once you begin noticing your unconscious declarations, you'll have the power to shift them, not through force, but through selection. Neville never said to fight the old. He said to assume the new. So when you hear, I am not ready, substitute, I am growing into it. If you say, I am exhausted, you might gently shift to, I am recharging. This isn't about lying to yourself. It's about choosing a new seed, one that matches the reality you desire. Because that's what words are. Seeds. Each I am you speak plants something in consciousness. And what is planted, if repeated with feeling, will bear fruit. Neville taught that inner speech precedes outer movement. Your world doesn't change because you work harder. It changes because you no longer say the same things to yourself, about yourself. You can have the most powerful vision board, the most elegant affirmations, but if your inner speech still says, I am stuck, your results will remain the same. Not because you don't deserve change, but because you haven't updated the voice of identity. So consider this. What are the 5 most common I am statements you say without even thinking? And now ask, are they describing a self you've chosen or a self you've inherited? You are always speaking your world into being. Most of the time you're doing it casually, automatically, unaware. But once you become conscious of your speech, once you begin listening with real attention, you move from habit to creation. This is not about being perfect. It's about being awake, present, intentional. And above all, it's about remembering that the one speaking in you, the one quietly saying I am, is the same presence that said, let there be light. You don't need permission. You don't need proof. You need awareness. Once you have that, you're no longer echoing the past. You're shaping the future. Sit in stillness with I am. Stillness is not inactivity. It is not passivity. It is power without noise, intention without strain, creation before form. In Neville Goddard's teachings, there is a sacred space that many overlook, not because it's hidden, but because it's quiet, still, unassuming. It's the space where you repeat only 2 words, I am, without adding anything after them. No desire, no label, no definition, just presence. He called it sitting in the awareness of being, and he was clear. Before you declare what you want to be, before you assume a new identity, you must return to the truth of what you already are. To be conscious of being is to be aware of oneself as I am. That is the beginning and the end of all, he said. Think of it this way. Most people try to transform their lives by repeating affirmations. I am abundant. I am strong. I am successful. But underneath those declarations there is tension, a subtle fear that it isn't true, a quiet sense of striving, a resistance masked as motivation. But when you return to the bare essence, I am, you touch the root. You reconnect with the awareness that exists before the mind assigns any role, story, or meaning. And this is what Neville wanted people to understand. I am is not just the beginning of a sentence. It is the name of God in you. It is the presence of being itself. When you say I am with nothing attached, you enter into alignment with the eternal. You step outside of roles, outside of time. You remember the still creative center within you that was never broken, never limited, never lacking. But why is this so powerful? Because all true transformation begins with identity, not effort, and all identity flows from a source. Most people try to change by rearranging symptoms, more money, better habits, improved relationships, but the cause remains the same, the assumed self. The self that is always speaking beneath the surface. I am not enough. I am trying to be better. I am lacking. Until that foundation is reset, the outer changes collapse. So Neville taught not just to assume a new identity, but to return first to the space before identity, to the formless presence, the blank canvas. And the only way to reach it is to sit in silence, not empty, but aware, not grasping, but allowing, saying I am, and then stopping there, letting those words echo into stillness. This is not a trick. It's not an affirmation technique. It's a return to origin. Consider the power of pausing here. I am. Nothing more. No labels. No limitations. No desires chasing outcomes. Just the quiet recognition of being. The feeling of existence without condition. What rises when you do that? At first, maybe discomfort. The mind wants to fill the space. It looks for definitions. It whispers, yes, but what am I? I need to be something. I need to fix something. I need to have something. But if you wait, without answering, something deeper begins to stir. A peace not rooted in circumstance. A stillness not disturbed by questions. This is presence. And presence, when felt deeply, becomes the ground of creation. Neville likened this to going back to the Father, going back to the root of consciousness, before it clothed itself in form. And once you've done that, once you've touched the stillness of I am, any new assumption you make afterward carries real substance. So when you later say, I am loved or I am wealthy, those words no longer come from longing. They don't come from hope or repetition. They come from a deeper place of knowing, from the realization that you were never separate from love, never outside of wealth, never cut off from what you seek. You were simply unaware of the place in you where it already lives. Let's make this more concrete. You don't need hours. You don't need rituals. You need sincerity. You need attention. Take a few minutes each day to sit. No goal, no visualization, just awareness. Say I am, and stop. Feel the stillness that follows. Let it expand. Notice the body relax. Notice the breath settle. Thoughts may arise. Let them pass. Return again to the phrase, I am. You're not trying to become anything. You're not trying to change your circumstances. You're simply remembering what has always been true. You are, and in that space there is nothing to fear, nothing to prove, nothing to chase. You don't need to fix yourself to access God. You need to remember who you already are. That remembrance happens in silence, in stillness, in being. Neville once said, when man discovers the creative power of inner speech, he will be careful of his inner conversations. He will watch what he is saying. For every idle word is a seed planted in the fertile soil of being. But even before speech, before the planting, there is the soil, still, quiet, receptive. That soil is I am. What would change if you lived from that space, not adding anything to yourself, but letting life be shaped by the stillness behind the words? You would speak less, but your words would carry more. You would desire less, but what you choose would appear with ease. You would act less, but your actions would be aligned. This is not theory. It is law, the law of identity, the law of being, and it begins with two words, spoken in silence. I am. Let that be your beginning. Let it be your home. Let it be enough. You must live like God just spoke through you. Once you've sat in the stillness of I am, once you've returned to the unshakable awareness of being, it's time to speak again. But now, not as someone seeking change, not as someone trying to attract or fix. You speak now as God. This is where Neville's teaching becomes radically practical. He said, when you know who you are, you don't beg for what you want. You assume it. Not arrogantly, not forcefully, but with certainty, as one who knows that what is claimed in consciousness must be reflected in form. After you say, I am healed, how do you move through the world? Do you wait for a diagnosis to confirm it? Do you look for someone to validate it? Or do you begin to carry yourself as someone who knows the healing is complete? After you say, "I am love," do you check to see if others agree? Or do you express love as if it's your nature? Not because of who receives it, but because of who you are. Neville put it simply, live as though your assumption is true. That is the real work. Not repetition, not effort, embodiment. Most people say "I am" in their private moments, then contradict it with their behavior. They declare "I am abundance," but speak of limitations. They affirm "I am peace," but live in resistance. This doesn't make them wrong. It makes them unaware, because they have not yet understood that after you speak the word, your body must become the message. To live like God just spoke through you means to allow every movement, every decision, every emotion to align with the identity you've chosen. Not the one you were given, or the one you inherited, but the one you now claim. Neville called this walking in the state. He would say, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. But this feeling is not just a mood, it's a standard, a new internal atmosphere. You carry it not because you see proof, but because you've spoken the word, and the word once spoken with faith cannot return void. What does that look like in everyday life? You wake up in the morning and remember, "I am." That is the source. You reaffirm, "I am fulfilled, I am chosen, I am aligned." Then you dress, you walk, you speak, you respond, not from the memory of yesterday, but from the truth of that statement. You stop looking for signs, you stop asking for permission, you stop trying to prove or earn. You've already received, and the outer world is simply catching up to the new inner command. Neville often said the world is a mirror, but he also reminded us that a mirror doesn't change until the image before it does. If you want to see a new reflection, don't press on the glass. Adjust the posture of the one looking into it. So ask yourself, how would I speak today if "I am confident" were a fact, not a hope? How would I respond to delays or disappointments if I already knew I am on time, I am guided? What habits would fall away if I fully accepted that I am the source, not the seeker? This is not a performance. You're not pretending, you're remembering. And in that remembering, your behavior naturally changes, not to earn a new life, but to express the one you've already assumed. This is why Neville insisted, your outer world is your inner speech made visible. So after you've spoken "I am," watch your next word, watch your next move. Ask, does it match the decree I've just made? And if it doesn't, don't punish yourself. Just return to stillness, return to identity, return to "I am." Speak again, then walk again, as though it is already done, not because you're trying to make it happen, but because God has already said it, and God speaks through you. Understand, faith means loyalty to the unseen. Faith, as Neville Goddard taught it, is not the belief that something might happen. It is not mere hope. It is not emotional optimism or the surface-level repetition of spiritual phrases. Faith, in its truest form, is loyalty to the unseen reality. This means you hold firm to the reality you have assumed within, even when all physical evidence seems to deny it. You remain inwardly convinced not because the world gives you signs, but because the word has already been spoken within you. You've sat in stillness. You've said "I am." You've listened to your inner dialogue. You've declared a new identity, not just with words, but with feeling. Now comes the part most people skip, the unwavering trust in that unseen identity, no matter what appears on the surface. Neville said, faith is loyalty to unseen reality. That which you assume to be true, you believe into being. Let's break that down. Loyalty means constancy, devotion, returning again and again to the inner knowing, regardless of outer appearance. You don't abandon the state you've claimed just because a bill arrived. You don't undo your declaration just because someone doubted you. Faith is the bridge between the unseen and the seen, and it is built on inner repetition, not outer results. This is not stubbornness. It is creative discipline. Neville illustrated this beautifully through scripture and metaphor. In The Law and the Promise, he described how every fulfilled desire was once sustained in imagination, even when there was no logical path for its arrival. The imaginer became loyal to the inner scene, not to the shifting facts of the outer world. He said, your faith is your fortune, not your effort, not your struggle, not your circumstances. Your faith, your unwavering identification with the unseen assumption, is what determines what you receive. Imagine you plant a seed underground. You cover it with soil, you water it, and the next day, you see nothing. Do you dig it up in doubt? Do you call it a failure? Or do you understand that the seed is working unseen beneath the surface? The same law applies to the assumptions you plant in consciousness. If you say, I am financially free, and tomorrow the bank account still shows lack, faith says, still, I am. If you say, I am loved, and the phone stays silent, faith says, still, I am. This is not blind ignorance. It is spiritual maturity. The maturity to understand that what is visible is always the echo of what has already been accepted within. And this is where most people falter. They speak I am, but only with one foot in. They try it for a few days. Then they look for results. And when results don't appear on their preferred schedule, they slip back into the old speech. I am still struggling. I am not there yet. I am disappointed. But consciousness responds to the consistent assumption, not the occasional declaration. Neville was clear. You must remain faithful to the state even when your senses mock it. You must trust in the invisible foundation, not the crumbling scenery. Because the world is not the cause, it is the reflection. Faith is the refusal to be seduced by appearances. Ask yourself, what do you do when reality doesn't seem to change? Do you adjust your speech back to the old story? Or do you double down on your unseen knowing? Here is the truth most people avoid. To live by faith is to feel it before it appears. To say I am whole while the condition persists. To say I am chosen while rejection still echoes. Not as a lie, but as a truth that the world has not yet caught up to. Neville would say that you are never waiting for the thing. You are waiting for yourself to become stable in the assumption. And once you are, the thing must come. Because it is already finished in the unseen. Your job is not to force it into form. Your job is to remain unmoved. That's what faith looks like in practice. It's walking like someone who has already received. It's speaking like someone who already knows. It's choosing behavior not based on circumstance, but on identity. And when doubt arises, which it will, you don't suppress it. You notice it. You gently return to I am. You speak it again, not louder, but with more conviction. Not to convince the world, but to remind yourself of who you are. That is how you build spiritual muscle. That is how you become someone who doesn't need evidence to feel secure. Because you've learned that the outer is only ever a photograph of the inner speech you've sustained. So let this be your reminder. Faith is not a one-time declaration. It is the continued loyalty to your inner word, spoken again and again until it becomes embodied reality. You don't have to see it yet. You only have to hold it, not lightly, not occasionally, but fully. Every time your senses challenge it, you say again, I am. Not in reaction, but in truth. Not with tension, but with knowing. And the world in time will rearrange itself to mirror your faith, not your fear. You are not hoping it will come. You are walking as though it already has. That is the law. That is the word. That is faith. Speak from identity, not desire. Every I am you speak is a seed. Whether whispered in doubt or declared in certainty, it takes root in consciousness. And what takes root, grows. Neville Goddard didn't tell us to hope for change. He taught us to assume the end, to speak from the identity of one who already is, not from the desire of one who lacks. He said, you rise to a higher level of being by assuming that you already are what you want to be. So, the shift is this. Stop speaking from need. Begin speaking from being. This is why we began with stillness, the blank canvas principle. Before adding any label, you returned to pure awareness. I am. That space is not empty. It is full of potential. Then came the listening, spiritual eavesdropping, where you began to notice the I am phrases shaping your life. You've seen now that the world reflects your identity, not your desire. Your job is not to make it happen. Your job is to remain loyal to the unseen reality you've chosen. When you say, I am loved, I am whole, I am secure, you are not making a request. You are issuing a decree, and the outer world must mirror the command. Now, if this message stirred something in you, if you want to take it deeper, check the pinned comment. There's something there you may want to see. It's simple. It's quiet, but it speaks with the same voice that says, I am.